What is up, everybody? I'm Tyler Rogan with Powerwash Academy. Today you're going to be riding along with me. We're going to be doing a house wash in Grapevine, Texas. We're going to walk around the property, take a look at this place, check out what we're in for. This person just bought this home. They're looking to clean it up and possibly get ready for painting. So we're going to clean all the painted surfaces for them around the house. There's quite a bit of flat work that needs to be addressed. This driveway is not in too bad a shape, but it can definitely show some improvement. So we're going to be cleaning that for them, rinsing out all this dirt. And we've got a little bit of algae growth here on the surface that'll definitely brighten up. Let's walk back here in the yard and take a look at what we're working with. We do have a detached garage here. The painted surfaces don't really show a lot of algae growth. This particular area is not too bad, but primarily what we're working with is going to be a lot of spider webs and bugs built up on the surface. One thing I'm noticing right off the bat when we get over here, this garage door, the paint is heavily oxidized. So I'm gonna give it the wipe test here, and you can see paint's coming off pretty badly. So we'll be careful with that. Ensure that we're not applying any direct pressure on there to disturb that oxidation on the surface. We will check and see if I've got a little rust remover plus on the truck, which I should. We may go ahead and treat that and remove that oxidation to some extent. Give it an improvement, bring some of that sheen back on the surface. So, starting back here, we do have some plants that we would need to take care of as far as keeping them from getting exposed to our house wash mixture. So we're gonna have at least one guy, maybe two, keeping an eye on these plants, keeping everything rinsed throughout the process. These leaves are fairly soft. That lets me know that if our house wash gets on there, they would probably be affected. So it's gonna be important to keep an eye on those throughout the process. So we're getting around here and starting to show a little more signs of what we're actually here for. Around these windows, we've got a lot of cobwebs and bugs built up there. We've got some dirt dauber nests around the property. This flat work here in the back can be cleaned, but the coloration of this probably won't change too much. Looks like we've got an old sealer on here that possibly has failed many years ago, but most of this organic growth that's on here, the dark gray coloration, that should come up well. And I feel like we can still get a good result out of it. Although there's probably a couple other things if you wanted to make it look perfect that they could do, and we can get it all right from a cleaning standpoint. And so back here we've got a aggregate pool deck. Not really a whole lot of growth. I can tell that it is pretty dirty. We've got some spots where potted plants have been, and they're known for leaving those dirt rings. We'll wash that away. Hopefully there's not any mineral buildup under there from where minerals have leached out of the soil. If there is, we can address that as well. Around here on this back side, we do have some algae growth going on this stone up here. And so we'll give this a chemical treatment, let it soak in to this Austin stone, and it should definitely brighten it up, make it look a lot more like new. We've got 2 extra guys here today, so we'll be able to move all this furniture out of the way. A lot of the time we do request that the customers get these out of our way before we start working. If they choose not to, that's okay, because we're getting paid $100 an hour to move lawn furniture, so not too bad in my opinion. Let's walk around here, take a look at more of these windows. I'm going to be checking out for any pre-existing damages or causes for concern. We can see this window here. It's fogged up inside. The gas between the 2 panels has already leaked out, allowing room for humid air to get inside of there, and it's starting to accumulate inside of that glass. And so it's good to take note of that. A lot of the times customers won't notice things like that until after we wash their home, and then they're curious as to if we may have caused that problem. But as you can see, this problem's already here. We'll be using our company cam app before we get started and go around, make documentation of everything that we're going to be cleaning and everything that may be a question after we're done cleaning. Around this other side of the house, This customer, there is some red clay staining on the bottom. We're not actually addressing that today, but we may apply medium pressure on it to try and knock some of that off. This particular type of brick and mortar is pretty tough, so it's not like a brick that has a coating on the outside that we'd need to be concerned with when we're applying higher than low pressure. And so some of that should come off. These windows here, lots more cobweb buildup. So you can see up here at the top, we've actually got some thick growth going on up there. So that will definitely look better. This one section over here, it's tucked in a corner. It probably stays shaded all the time. And so that's gonna allow the environment for all of this algae and mold to grow on the side of the house over here. And so power washing it off, you might be able to get most of that off, but definitely using a house wash mix is going to be most beneficial for you. Kill all that growth and make sure that it's not going to come back nearly as quickly, and make sure that we're penetrating all the way down, getting rid of all of it. And so we've got a couple wasp nests here and there, a couple dirt daubers, but overall I don't see anything that's going to be too difficult for us here. Got all this growth here, and these windows here are really dirty, and we've got a ton of buildup inside of the screen. We're not washing the windows on this house, but if we were, we definitely need to remove the screens and get all that trash out of there to make it look right. Coming out around these flower beds, not uncommon to see this type of stone laid out. And we'll be treating those with sodium hypochlorite today, and we're going to be using our soft wash system to wash the house. We'll probably put it at a pretty low setting. We just need enough chemical in there to release the cobwebs in the dirt. These areas down here that have a lot of heavy growth, we're going to be using a pump-up sprayer, and we're going to have a much stronger mix. So we'll probably have 6 to 8% in our pump-up sprayer to spot treat these certain areas and that area on the side of the house, whereas our house wash mix will probably be about 1.5 to 2%. Pretty light mix. It's not all the way on the outside, so even you're trying to be careful when you pick it up, then it breaks. And then they don't know. They might have thought you were just throwing it around back here, although you're being really careful with it. So that sort of stuff, we're just gonna leave that there. All of these, obviously easy to move. Anytime there's anything hanging on the wall, unless it's something real big and heavy that I know we can't blow down, go ahead and take them down, because washing around them, most of the time it's going to want to fall down on you when you got your gun in your hand and you're trying to work. So when we're spraying around light fixtures like this as well, we want to try and minimize the amount of chemical that we're spraying around here. This particular one is okay. I'm familiar with, you know, this metal and this type of paint that's on there, so it won't really be affected, but you never know. You know, we're at a lot of homes, you may have them made of copper or brass or something like that, and the chemical gets on there just for a couple seconds, it'll tarnish it, and you can get some polish and come back and clean it all up, but we're not here for that either. So let's just avoid that if possible. So in here, we'll go real quick when we spray our house wash mix on here, and when I'm done with that, it's gonna be dripping. So we'll have somebody here with a gun, just kind of continually rinsing this off for a few seconds until that quits dripping down. And then, you know, it's got all this buildup on here of cobwebs and bugs. So just a real light rinse with a low pressure tip. And this area back here, a lot of growth buildup. This is gonna be several different colors. There's so much stuff going on. It looks like we've got some sort of spilled paint or something there. Obviously the gray stuff is an algae growth, and we don't know how this is going to turn out. There's so many different layers of stuff going on here. We won't really know until we get the cleaning and see this strange pattern here. Like, who even knows what caused that? Because it looks like it was sealed or painted at one time, and then something got poured out here and spilled down here and took that off. It's something pretty thick. So we can get those chairs, leave that pot. We're gonna get all of these and probably first set them up Yeah, I say we'll get all these and just set them over there in that grassy area. You can wear white too, either one, whatever you got.
I got both.
Okay. One thing I'm noticing is that we've got some paint that's not in great condition. It's flaking off a little bit. It's certainly gonna chip off more once we're doing our rinse. So that'll be brought to the customer's attention. Whenever we send out an estimate, there's a long disclaimer on there that talks about chipping paint, outlets that aren't protected the way they need to be, potentially leaky windows, rotten wood, things like that. So they read over that before they accept the estimate, but just to ensure that they're aware that if they hadn't noticed this before, they'll definitely notice it after we're done. So it's good to draw out their attention. For a lot of the dirt dauber nests around here, or dirt dauber nest anywhere for that matter, I like to get in here carefully, not to touch the paint, but try to break off as much of the nest as possible wherever they're easily accessible. That's just going to make it a little bit faster process for us when we're trying to remove those. If I soak it while the whole thing's there, it takes a while for that water to soak all the way through and get to the base, which is where it's stuck to the paint. So you want to be real careful not to scratch the paint. Try to only touch whatever tool you're using to the dirt that's on the surface. And pocket knife's probably not the greatest thing. If you wanted to get a flat piece of plastic, like a little, what are those? Maybe even a credit card, something similar to that shape. You know, the plastic's going to protect the paint from getting scraped quite so much, but don't have a credit card on me. And the drainage back here might be an issue. It all kind of slopes this way, and it's still sloping this way down to this edge. So it's probably going to try to hold water right here. We've only got a small section down here that is lower because it all goes up from here. So as we're washing this, we may have a problem with the drainage. So that's something to keep in mind and look out for while you're here doing your initial walk and estimate. And you know, having drainage issues can add hours to your work time if you're not ready for it. So if you see that being a potential issue, then just keep that in mind when you're putting together your estimate, because if you're back here chasing water for an extra hour to get this rinsed out in the way that you want it, or you've got to let it settle, then come back and re-rinse again real quickly. That's all time that you should be getting paid for. Now, the outlets are something we always want to check. This looks like a nice heavy duty, you know, outdoor outlet, but you don't want to just take it for that. You want to look closely, and you can see that this thing, although it looks to be a nice outdoor outlet, it's not ideal. There's no foam insulation in here to protect the outlet itself. This is bowed in, so that being gone, and this little crack that's right here in the top is totally exposed. Are you getting that to where you can see exactly what's going on? Yep. Okay, so this cover's not loose, or this cover's not tight, no insulation here, big gaps in there, so that's begging for a short. Thing's still good. A lot of times I'll just wrap over the outside, but since there's absolutely nothing, in fact it's probably worse because the water wants to run inside of there since it doesn't set flush. So it is working now. We'll double check that when we're done. So we'll go ahead and kill the power to this thing for right now.
Okay.
It's a safety measure. Put some tape over the top of that, get it all the way around the edges. So that's going to protect the front of that. And then we'll go all the way around the outside too. Good measure, we'll put one more little piece over this front slot. I mean, you want to seal them up pretty good, mainly on the top. A lot of the time the water's going to go down, but sometimes you're rinsing and water can come up from another angle. So, but as long as we're keeping the majority of what's going to go in there out. These are outside and they do get wet, but it could be us that finally gets water in the wrong spot. This thing is nice. It's got this little trim piece goes inside of that slot, so it takes a lot of work for the water to work its way all the way in there. So if that's in place, that's pretty well sealed off. I like these plastic boxes quite a bit more. You can see the foam around the back of this one is still nice and new and soft, and so that box is pretty well sealed off. Okay, I don't really see very much organic growth up here in the front, so that being the case, I'm probably just going to soak down these areas where the dirt dauber nests are at and rinse those away with water. Around front doors, I typically like to minimize the amount of chemicals that I'm using, just because a lot of the time the wood on this door itself, their handles and locks, they can change color depending on what they're made of. And you know, even if you just briefly get your house wash mix on there, it can cause a discoloration where you're gonna have to come back and buff all that out, add a bunch of extra work, and then most importantly, it may cause a concern for the customer to be questioning if you knew what you were doing in the first place, if you could cause damages. So if I can avoid spraying chemical around the front door area, that's what I'll do. That's what I'm gonna do today. This job is not going to require a whole lot of strong mix chemical. Most of what we're cleaning off is dirt and cobwebs, a little bit of algae growth. There are some spots that have heavy growth and are probably going to take a couple applications. And so instead of us applying over and over and over with a light mix, I'll make a small batch that I can just spray on directly and let it get to work before we get around to doing the soft wash of the house and try to knock some of this out, loosen it up a little bit. In this batch, we've got, Daniel said 8%, I think 6% would be okay, but I'm going to be careful not to spray on this fence until we get it soaked down. So I'm just going to go real light with an application here. And this algae that's on here is so hardened. It's been through many seasons of growing and dying, and then when it dies, it hardens. And then the next year it comes back and it's just building up on top of itself. So maybe a little tricky to get it all the way out. Sometimes when you've got some growth that's really embedded in, you can't get it off completely. But we can see this, we're getting a good color change pretty quick. That white foaming action is a good sign. That's what we're looking for. Lets us know our chemical is fresh. I know it's fresh. We went to Powerwash.com and filled it up about 30 minutes ago. So, but ensuring that you've got a good batch of chemical is crucial. Okay, I think that's about it. Don't put that in there. Get that glass wet before I start treating. Okay, that's a good sign. Let's go up front and we'll get this spot too, since it's actually working like I hoped it would. So you can see all this growth. Some of these areas that were hardened and black, they're actually lightening up, and sometimes you don't know until you find out, but I wasn't certain that was going to come off, but this is all turning a light brown color, and so that's a good sign. Let's, you know, that's all going to come off of there. We're going to get what we came for. Being very careful right up next to that fence. Once we soak the wood panels down, I can get all the way up in that crack, but for right now, I'm being careful not to get any chemical on there, because the wood will absorb the chemical and it will change colors. You got to explain it to do with the customer. Woo, we got a ton of mosquitoes back here. Sheesh. these, we'll treat them with a good strong batch. You gotta be careful when you're coming back to rinse them because we've got dirt on all sides of this thing. There's no grass, so when we get into trying to spray and rinse them off, it's gonna splash mud everywhere. And so ideally, we'll just spray these down and let the chemical do what it does and see what kind of result we get. There's a good chance it'll clean up and brighten up enough that we don't really need to worry about putting any pressure on it to rinse it. So I'm just going to treat these probably once. And puff to draw out of our SH tank. We just store our SH in one container. Sometimes people have more than one, but we've just got this one here, so if we need to fill up our pump up sprays or take off the lid from this, we're using these little end pumps. They're okay. If anybody out there has a better one they want me to try, you know how to find me. But for now we use them. They're okay. Generally they last a few weeks under heavy use. We try to rinse them out after every job to keep the chemical from drying out the plastic, but I haven't found a real good one of those just quite yet. On this truck, we've got a soft wash system made by Powerwash.com. It is called the Stallion. Puts out 11 gallons a minute. Has a good flow rate. Has a good reach, so you can get up on those higher, harder reach areas, and does a pretty darn good job. And we're also using the Sidewinder proportioning system to dial in all of our mixes. So water, sodium hypochlorite, and our surfactant. Our surfactant, we're actually going to be using the cherry blossom rather, because that one has the dye on it, the marking dye. And so for this house, we're not going to use a whole lot of surfactant. We're going to use a pretty light mix, so we probably won't see the pink spraying up onto the house. But that's what it's designed to do, is whenever you're spraying a house, you'll be able to make sure you're getting all of the areas covered that you want to, and ensure that you're not going to have to go back and touch up anything. So you've got that stuff cranked open pretty well. It does a great job of letting you know where your soap is going. All right, Daniel's changing out an O-ring. These things vibrate and rub on one another, so you can see this one is in bad shape. Just going to start leaking and creating an issue. So it's a good idea to check those pretty often. Even if you don't have a leak, pull them apart and look in there and see. If you see any sort of fraying or anything on there, just go ahead and replace it before it starts leaking, because it's going to be a lot more convenient to change this out while you're doing maintenance or fueling up the truck or whatever, versus stopping what you're doing in the middle of a job because you're spraying water all over the place. So good eye on that, Daniel. Good find. How long has it been since you changed that one out? A week. So the way that this particular machine is set up, this hose is kind of in a position to where it's not setting straight up. It kind of bends over a little bit. So on this O-ring, you can see it's worn on one side, and that has to do with the hose that's fitting in here is always leaned a little bit to this one direction. So it's got a little more force on this side, and that's absorbing most of the contact on this side of the O-ring where it's damaged. So having your hoses set up in an alignment to where they're as easily as possible going to be going straight into the socket, that will help prevent that condition. But just kind of the way that this is set up, we've got this tank here, so it can't go directly straight back. But he knows about that, knows to keep an eye on it, so he can keep those changed out as they need to be done. Okay, and as you've heard me talk about many times in the other videos, we're still using a dual lance wand on this one. Just going to allow us to drop our pressure down significantly by diverting your water flow out of just your single lance. You've got the second one, it'll divert a lot of your pressure through with a soft wash tip on the end. So even if you've got a white high pressure tip on there, when this is open up all the way, it's low enough pressure you can put your hand in front of it, or use it on delicate surfaces without having to be too concerned with causing damages from the pressure. Almost all of that growth is gone. I will let that dwell for another minute or so and then rinse it off. And then once we do the house wash, I will come back with that lighter mix and hit it one more time, and that should do the trick. We do have an open window here, Jordan. Can you let the customer know this window's not closed?
Yeah.
And that's something you always want to check for. Got a little crack here, and I've got all this buildup in the bottom channel of this window that I want to rinse out, and doing that is going to push it straight in there. All right, so let's select the nozzle we want. Okay, so I'm going to select my most open nozzle, nice low pressure, and that'll allow me to get up close to things without causing any damages. No worry there.
Which window, Tyler? Oh, this one,
here.
I see it.
Come off. Easily it'll come off without chemical. But it's okay to get near the brick. It's very low pressure. We're blowing out 8 gallons a minute, so that's pretty significant. But if I'm trying to break loose, a little bit of this stick rolls off the top like this before I start grating it, that's okay. So we're still using low pressure. I can obviously get it all off of there, start using high pressure, but that's not what we do. We want to be safe with everything we're working on. As I mentioned before, if you can get to them and break them off, that will be beneficial for you. Save you a little bit of time, but get a good majority of that off. And I'll soak it down. Give it a few minutes to soften up. You'll waste a lot of time. Try to get it all off at once. It's not all going to come off at once. So just get it wet, get it softened down, and we should be good to go. It's not a bad idea if we're using a strong mix. Go ahead and soak down the grass around the house, just to be safe. Some homes you need to be more concerned than others, but definitely doesn't hurt to soak all this down beforehand, and as we're rinsing off the house, we'll come back and rinse all that off one more time. It's not gonna, we've got a low mixture, about 1.5%, so it's not gonna kill the grass, but if we can prevent it from yellowing or browning at all, that's just one less thing that the customer needs to be concerned with. Some people are understanding, some people freak out, and they might think that you've totally ruined their lawn, which it'll always come back and it'll be okay after that breaks down and the grass grows back. But let's just avoid some sort of confrontation potentially from somebody who may be upset about something so easy to do. Ready to rumble. Start up the soft washer.
Yeah. Jordan, if you can go grab the red gun and release the pressure, I'll turn on the machine.
Tyler, where should I shoot this? Into the pool's fine. And so whenever I've got a customer with the pool, it makes it easy to relate to them with the chemical that I'm using. Say, is this a chlorine pool? If it is, I'll say, okay, well that's similar to what we're putting through our machine. So they're already familiar with their pool chlorine. Makes them a little more comfortable to know that if this is going in the pool, it's not going to hurt anything. So, we're going to start the machine up. We're going to get our dial set into the correct mixture for the strength of Powerwash today. And probably a better way, but usually give it a little taste test. I can tell when it's coming through. With our length of hose on that machine, it takes about 30 seconds for opening the valve to get to the end of the gun. There we go. Okay, so if you'll keep your eye on where I'm spraying, you can use this gun. If I splash back on this plant or I splash back on the fence, you'll be able to re-wet that.
Okay.
If a fence is sealed off real well, and the sealer's in good condition all the way around, it's less of a concern. We still want to treat it, by soaking it down, but you got less risk of anything changing colors if the sealer's still good on there. This one is good in some areas, and in some areas it's almost completely broken down. So that being said, we need to soak the wood down first. Okay, crack this real lightly. Keep it off of that fence. Let it soak. Starting at the bottom, working my way to the top. This type of brick isn't that much of a concern to do that for, but on a lot of painted areas, stucco, you're going to want to start at the bottom and work your way up. If you start at the top and you've got this rundown, sometimes it'll create streaks in the surface. You don't want that. Okay, I got plant. Okay, we did have this spot over here. It's got some algae growth. So I'm gonna go ahead and treat it beforehand. So when we come back to the surface cleaning, that might be almost clean for us. Okay, I did spray on those plants a little bit right there, Daniel. Just give them a good distance, really good area. I'm gonna go ahead and treat this. Just a little bit. Thank you, sir. Wash. Okay. Okay. Now, I would say let's go ahead and turn off the soft wash for a minute. Soak this down first, Daniel. Give me 30 seconds.
Why don't you go back over to the soft wash?
Ready? 30 seconds?
Yeah, I'm just soaking down this patio real quick. Since this brick didn't have a lot of organic growth on it, pretty much what I'm doing is I'm rinsing it off, just keeping an eye out for dirt daubers. That's going to be the main problem that we had on the brick itself. And so you got to check before you go. You move your hoses around to the other side of the house, then you realize you got one little mud spot that you need to go back and clean. Wait 15 minutes. Keep going.
Whenever we work in teams, that's what I always do. See something, just go down.
you can see a lot of this road is coming off very easily. Little pre-treatment helps off quite a bit. And whatever that is on the surface is definitely breaking down. Looks like here's a footprint. Somebody had stepped in something and walked out here.